Hello, have you ever blundered a piece or checkmate and thought, oh, that was so obvious, how could I blunder like that? Well, we all have, and simple blunders cannot really be fully stopped, but today I will teach you a method with which you can reduce the amount of blunders you make, at least the simple blunders. So this will be called the blunder check. I'm sure you've heard of it, but perhaps you don't know how exactly this should be done. And the way it should be done is simple. So first, we of course are quite good at finding some kind of moves. So let's say you find the move. Then, before making the move you want to make, you must visualize that you have made the move. After every move, the position will have changed, so you must visualize a different position than you are seeing, right? Then, without making the move again, think about the opponent's checks, captures, and attacks. This way you will see his forcing moves and his potential tactical opportunities, whether it be a check, a capture, or an attack on your piece. Once you've checked some of your opponent's checks, captures, and attacks, then finally you can decide whether or not you want to make the move. Quite often you will decide that you don't want to make the move after all, because it will turn out to be a blunder. Perhaps you're blundering a piece, perhaps there was some tactic that you did not automatically see, or perhaps there was something else. So this is a skill that has to be trained, and we can train it right now. So no better way than to look at a game in which there were a lot of blunders. So let's take a look. So e4, e6, knight f3, bishop e7. So this is quite a strange opening by black. So far white is playing very naturally, developing the knights. c6, let's say black is trying to play d5. And here white made the move bishop g5, which turns out to be a losing move on the spot, and the game is more or less over, we could say. So how could we avoid this? Well, before making the move bishop g5, even if it seems like a simple move, developing a piece, something like that, we must think about the opponent's checks, captures, and attacks. So let's visualize this move. The bishop is on g5, not on c1. What are the opponent's checks? There are no checks, right? Captures, turns out there's only one capture, bishop g5, and then if we take again, there's actually a queen on d8, and we lose a piece. So this happened, and white is down a piece. So instead white played knight e5, f6, knight g4, knight e7, and here before playing the move knight e7, black could have actually thought about what checks, captures, and attacks the opponent has, and it turns out after knight e7 there's a very annoying move in the way of h4. So this is not terribly obvious, but if we look at it from white's perspective, checks, captures, and attacks, there is one check, it's defended. Captures, well, it's the same capture. Attacks, what can white attack? Queen, no. Rooks, no. Knights, bishops, no. This bishop is the only thing white can attack. And after h4, the bishop cannot go here, or here, or here, or here. It only has this square. And now white can take this pawn, attacking the opponent's king, and this is slightly annoying. And notice that here, this was not a threat, right? At the moment, this was defended. But this is why before making the move, we have to visualize the move that we want to make, as after every move, something has changed. So white plays bishop c4 instead, b4, bishop b3, all of these moves are kind of normal, a3, a4, bishop a2, queen e5, and here white plays the move b4. And again, before making the move b4, we have to visualize that we have made the move, and then think about the opponent's checks, captures, and attacks. So let's imagine this move b4, checks, bishop d2, that is fine. Captures, what can he capture? He can capture queen b4. What else can he capture? Oh, it turns out en passant is possible. And if we just visualize this move, now we see that the knight is hanging and the bishop is also under attack. So now white cannot actually save both of his pieces, and black wins a piece. So this was also an example. Queen c7, queen f3, f5, e takes, and a few moves later we get the move queen g3, attacking the bishop. At least this is what black thought. And he played the move bishop f6. I'm sure a lot of you already see something wrong with these last two moves. So here, this is why techniques like what the opponent attack are not really that efficient, because, well, it turns out the opponent, in this case white, did not only attack the bishop, but also the queen was attacked, which was not seen in the game by both players. And black moved the bishop and white just castled, right? So instead of this, black should, before making the move, think about again the opponent's checks, captures, and attacks. So let's imagine bishop f6. What are white's checks? Bishop f7, queen takes g6. These are both possible, but they're not very good. Still, it's good to see them. What are the captures? Again, queen g6, and then we find queen takes c7. And then black can decide that, oh, I will actually not play the move bishop f6. I will play something else, maybe exchange queens. So instead, bishop f6, castles, white does not find the hanging queen. Now d6, f4, knight a6, rook a e1. So both sides are kind of developing pieces, but since black is a piece up, the game should end in black's favor, but of course anything can happen. White gives a check, king b8, queen h3, and here bishop d4 was played, and this was something black could have played before, but he did it now, and queen h6. So white maybe wants to activate their queen, I don't know, attacking something like queen g7 at some point, but again, before making this move, white should have checked the opponent's checks, captures, and attacks. So let's imagine the queen on h6, checks, bishop takes e3, this is defended. Captures, bishop takes e3, or bishop takes c3, or knight takes b4, I guess. But it's enough to see bishop takes c3 to see that we should definitely not make the move queen h6, and we should look for a different move, and then we go back and find something like knight e1 to at least not lose more pieces. So instead this happens, black does not take the piece, king h1, and again, before making king h1, like, sure, maybe positionally we want to get out of the pin, but as we know, positional chess always comes second to tactics. So before making the move king h1, well, I'm sure you already see, one bishop is attacked, and the knight is also attacked, so white cannot really play this move, but he did. Bishop e6, knight takes f5, so at this point maybe white is already in a panic, as there are two pieces down, but here this doesn't work, knight takes f5, and now maybe white's idea was to take the bishop on e6, but now it turns out the queen on h6 has been attacked. So instead queen g5, bishop takes c3, and at this point black is 4 pieces up, so even though white got one back, it wasn't really enough, and black won the game in a couple of moves. So in this game we saw that there were a lot of blunders, and a lot of them could have been avoided by the simple blunder check. Before making the move, we try to visualize the move that we really want to make, and then check the opponent's checks, captures, and attacks. So let's see a couple of more examples. So this is quite a chaotic position, and in this one, white's king is kind of walking around the board, but black's king is also not very safe, as there's a lot of tension in the center, but it is black to move. And here black decided on the move bishop d4, attacking the queen, and as you know, here the bishop can just be taken with the rook, and suddenly the game is over, even though before it was quite an interesting position. So before making the move, checks, captures, and attacks, the opponent can take the bishop, right? There aren't any checks to see, but there are 2 captures, and one of them is winning. Instead, black should do something like rook d2 b1, with the sneaky threat of queen takes a3 checkmate because of the pin, and the game goes on. Both kings are quite in some trouble. Another example, here black did a successful blunder check, even though it was a little bit too late, as the mistake was already made. Still, he did well to not blunder the whole game. So here black seems to have a tactic, right? Bishop takes f3, with the idea of taking the pawn on d4, because we have eliminated a defender. Does this work? Well, you can pause the video and find out, but in the game, let's see what happened. Bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3, and now black moved the queen to d6. Why? I'm sure because now, even though his plan was to take on d4, he decided to check for a blunder, So queen takes d4, let's imagine the move. What are the opponent's checks, captures, and attacks? Turns out the opponent has one check, bishop takes c6, and this one check is enough to win the game, because once we recapture, the queen on d4 will not be defended. For example, like this, white has eliminated the defender of the queen, b takes, queen takes, white is a queen up, black can resign. So losing a game is that easy. So instead black plays queen d6, and he can continue to play the position. It's not very good because white has a very good bishop here, now that black took here, but at least black has not lost the queen. This was another interesting example. So here white is under some pressure and white is down a pawn, and often when we're down material we have this urge to get the material back as soon as possible, and we look for ways to capture pieces, and here white had a chance to take the pawn on c4, equalizing the material. And again, you can pause the video and try to figure out whether or not this works. But let's take a look what happened in the game. White instead played king h2. And king h2 is indicative that white definitely did a blunder check. Perhaps he wanted to take here, but then he visualized this position, thought about the opponent's checks, captures, and attacks, and turns out the only check in the position, bishop takes f2, is very strong because it creates a discovered attack on the queen, which is then on c4. So this means that this pawn on c4 is indirectly defended. So white played king h2, which now attacks the pawn, because bishop f2 would not be a check. So a successful blunder check here by white, and this would have really lost the game for white on the spot, had he simply taken the pawn. Another example from the same game. Here white's last move was rook c1, and here black played rook c3. So you might be asking, so why is he not just taking the free rook? As it seems that we can take the rook, queen takes c1, and queen takes f5. So again, you can pause the video and try to figure out whether or not this works, and then let's see what happened in the game. So here, black can actually take the rook. Even if he does a blunder check, we still have to decide whether or not we still want to make the move, right? So before making the move, what are the opponent's checks, captures, and attacks? Turns out there is a fork on e7. Black probably saw this and decided that he should not do this because the bishop is defending on e7, right? But it turns out that we can still play the move. So when we do a blunder check and we see something by the opponent, this doesn't mean that we necessarily have to disregard the move that we want to make. After knight takes e7, king h7, knight takes g6, it seems that black lost the queen, but let's not forget this pawn. And here black can just move away the bishop somewhere, and next move they're creating the queen on c1, which will make white have to give up their queen. This is a bit complicated and unnecessary, but if black wants, they can do a blunder check and make sure that he is winning at the end of the line and go for this variation. But it's of course not necessary. Instead, black played rook c3, and with his extra two pawns, slowly black won the game. And let's check one last example. One important issue is that often we do not make blunder checks because we think that there are no tactics in the position, and we are simply making a natural developing move, something like this. So here you can again pause the video and try to figure out what you would play here with black. I will give you a few seconds, and let's take a look what happened in the game. So here black is a bit under pressure. White has a lot of space on the queen side. Black has some poor pieces on the queen side. And the black decided that, well, it's time to play bishop a6 to develop this bad bishop, to exchange it for the opponent's good bishop. All of this makes sense positionally. But unfortunately, this move loses on the spot, and black cannot really recover from this blunder, and he had to resign in around 8 moves. So what happened here? Well, before making the move bishop a6, black should check the opponent's forcing moves. This is a reminder that we have to do blunder checks on every single move, because we do not know when we will blunder. If we could know, we would not blunder, right? So we have to do it on every move. So what are the opponent's checks, captures, and attacks? Let's imagine the bishop on a6, not on c8. The opponent can give a check here. We don't care about that. It's covered. Captures, well, he can capture some pawns, but they are defended. He can capture the bishop, which might seem obvious, right? Our plan was to exchange the bishops, and we will recapture on a6. But the calculation does not stop there. What are the opponent's checks, captures, and attacks in that position? Well, he has no checks. He still has these captures, but they're all covered. What can he attack? And it turns out here white can attack the knight on a4, on a6, as well as the pawn on c6, creating an important fork. And here black is just lost, as he will be losing a pawn, while also not really developing his pieces. He played queen c8, but this gives up the pawn on c6. Instead, b5 would give up the knight on a6, and knight b8 would kind of defend c6 and the knight, but here white can take on b6, and now with the spin here, black cannot recapture, so white has won a pawn here as well, with the better position as well. So here, a very unfortunate blunder, and you can imagine a strong player making the move bishop a6 very quickly, because we're kind of forgetting that when we're playing for positional aspects of the game, we forget that we can still make blunders, right? Which is why we must do blunder checks on every single move. We don't know when they will happen. So hopefully this makes sense. Hopefully this was useful. And don't forget the way to blunder check. First, visualize the move that you want to make. Do not make it instantly. And then, from that position, think about the opponent's checks, captures, and attacks. And only then decide whether or not you still want to make the move. So, thank you for watching, and good luck reducing your blunders.